Okay, thank you very much that you join us here. Um, Actually, you by coming here helped me more than I telling you what I have to tell, because I'm brewing this entrepreneur stuff for more than 4 years already. And my plan is by the end of the year, at least to have a good skeleton together for a book which outlines what my findings are. Yes, switch off your mobile phones, everybody, please. And then, or on silent at least. So, and what I found out, it's very helpful for me to tell others about my passion, because when I do that, then I need to find a structure. And what I can tell you is this entrepreneur stuff and setting up a business and setting up something commercial is like a big jungle. And over the many years that I do this, I just got to walk around once around the jungle, and now I'm splitting it into segments that can be chewed on more easily. And the question is always how to start from which side and what is the best way. And by sharing with others and getting feedback, it helps me a lot to structurize what I want to say. So you all, of course, get the free copy of that book if you follow me. It will be for download on my webpage, and would have much more than today. Each time I give a talk, I mix what I already have done before with something new. And I believe what I've today for you, I believe you will like it. So a bit about my background. I believe you all know me, but what you don't know is that originally it was never my plan to become a patent attorney. Never. Actually, I'm an inventor myself. I have a lot of inventions, and I've sold inventions, and I set up businesses. I do this. My first business I had with the age of 14 was a tuition ring, and then I always had businesses all along the way. And I'm a patent attorney only because in the 1993 there was a recession in Germany and also worldwide. We will soon experience a similar thing. And during that recession, it was even for an overqualified engineer with very good marks and a master's degree in 5 languages impossible to find a job. So I enrolled into law school and became a patent attorney. And since then, this is 26 years ago, I have filed about 18,000 patents, 4,000 trademarks. I work for big multinational companies like Siemens, Infineon, General Motors, you name them. Usually a big MNC in Singapore or in Munich, we worked for them. I have a firm with offices in Munich and in Singapore. We are about 35 people. And over the 23 years that this firm exists, we have done a 3-digit million revenue, which is not so bad for a startup as myself. Right? So I talk from experience. Then over the 23 years, I always set aside a little 20% for very small companies. Right? So I love to work with startups because I think I can help them a lot, which was also a motive why I started this. And what I must say is, over the 23 years, I've seen about 100 bankruptcies from inside. Why do I see the bankruptcies from inside? Because a startup, when it has trademarks and patents and it goes bankrupt, then the bankruptcy liquidator would always want to know in the end, what do I get for selling these patents? Right? And I always help him. And ultimately, we two are the ones who switch off the light. We sit together, have a nice meal from the proceeds of the selling the patents, and then he would usually tell me why this startup went bankrupt. So this is what I can tell you. I have seen about 600 failed products. Why do I know what is a failed product? Because when people file patents for their products, right, at some point in time, they give up their patents. And then they send me a letter or an email, hey, I don't want to pay the renewal fees for this patent. And then I ask back colloquially, what was the problem? And they say, it didn't work out. So I find out, why didn't it work out? Right? And is there a pattern for this kind? And yes, there's a pattern. And all that experience comes together, and I put it together so that everybody can see it in open light. I can also tell you from my own failed inventions. I have a lot of failed inventions which didn't work out. But I found a way to have an invention that doesn't work without going bankrupt, because I'm still here and not bankrupt. So and I find the difference between being a successful company and an unsuccessful company is to have a high frequency of new innovation, but without getting killed by this innovation, right? So innovation that doesn't make it to the market is not a mishap, is not something that shouldn't happen. It happens all the time. The trick is to recognize the pattern early enough so that you can cut off the funding so that you have it free for something else. And the question is then always how to prioritize, but that leads a far way down. So now you know a bit where I'm coming from. I know most of you, actually, yeah, most of you, so I know the background. If you want to set up a company or a new product or so, I believe you will benefit a lot. But let's start. So, the first thing is, I wanted to explain, I do this to cheer up a bit. Connie broke her arm because she fell, right? She said, do you have something to cheer me up? And I say, yes, I have something for you. What I have for you is the following. Most people, when you ask them what I do, they say, this guy is a lawyer. And I said, no, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a patent attorney. So what is the difference between a patent attorney and a lawyer? Difference is, let's start with the lawyer. Huh? We are in the topics that we want to cover. I believe I just ride you through without boring you. Hello, Tech Bang. Good morning. Yeah. So, what is a lawyer? And this is my favorite symbol for a lawyer. It's the Chinese symbol for horse. It's Ma, right? And it stands for energetic, passionate, upright, aspirant, right? And the Wu Xing, the 5 elements of the Ma is raw, so that the Ma stands for zeal and passion. Right? And actually, that's how lawyers want to be seen, right? They want to, we push this through, and then so. So now, in contrast to that, what is a patent attorney? And the patent attorney, this is the best that I've found. Namely, a patent attorney, in his head, is an engineer, and up his ass, a lawyer. And what we do not do is the best. We don't do divorce cases. No divorce, okay? No stolen bicycle cases. No murder cases. No real estate transactions. We do just innovation, and only that. And don't you think that you can get your innovation done with somebody who is not trained in that area and has no experience in your personal business area? Right? Just to give you an example, before I became a patent attorney, I worked in engineering. I was in robotics and also in water power, hydropower electrics. And Peter, hello. No problem, come in. There's a seat here. Yeah. And so whenever you work with somebody in that area of innovation, then just make sure that this guy also does it in the same area as your business. So now, common myths when it comes to innovation. Myth number 1, innovation and intellectual property correlate. It's not true. That's new. It means that despite over some periods of time when a country is thriving, you would also see an increasing number of patent applications on trademark applications and design applications, whatever. But despite correlating over a certain time, there is no interconnection between the two. That explains also the myth number 2. More IP does not mean more innovation. You cannot drive up your innovation by boosting your IP filings. Hello. There's one more seat here. Hi. We have a strong German community here. Yes. What is it? Need a toilet. Hello, Victor. Yeah. Okay. You can download the slides on your slide share. The link is on that whiteboard for those who are late. Anyway, so myth number 3, innovation must be novel. No, wrong. Innovation is seldom novel. Best innovation is when you take something that you see with some disadvantages and you take it and apply it to your own company and then improve it there where you see the problem. That's innovation. And innovation is always something that ultimately is intended to be on the market, at the market, that you generate revenue from it. So innovation is not some space science that is not applied here. Innovation, hands-on, is intended to generate a living for you. Next one, innovation starts with IP. That's the worst concept that exists out there. Then usually when they say, why don't we do something with you as a patent attorney? I said, no. First you do your idea, and then we look what we can do in order to help you. And very often, especially people from my area, they think that IP should be in the first position, and then everything follows from that. It's not my experience, and it never works. So, how a typical failure story of a startup looks like. Let's go to the morgue, huh? So, phase one is an idea, usually, right? And here I've taken an example. We have a solar flower pot heater. It's very useful for Singapore, as you can imagine. That was sarcastic. No, this is not useful. And everybody who sees that, no, but there are people out there, and then they invent all sorts of things like perpetuum mobile, and you would not imagine what nonsense is out there. But I've taken the solar flood power, and let's assume the guy who invented the solar flower pot heater is very, very thrilled about his idea. And now the next thing is he does a functional model, and he finds out functional model. Oh yes, my flowers grow much better with a solar flower pot heater, and then he does a prototype. And by doing so, usually when we talk about costs, the prototype is already in the range of $25,000, because a solar flower pot heater needs some plastic materials, so you need a mold, and you need somebody who produces that, unmolds it, and mounts it, and then he gets a discount because his uncle has a factory for that, and then, but still, we have spent already $25,000 here. Next, we do a product. He's so convinced, and also his grandmother, because the flowers grow so nicely on the balcony, and she decides she would get some of her CPF to support the grandson, and then we put here $200,000 in the product. $250,000 spent already so far, right? And then we do the marketing. And then the marketing is done with friends and family. And now I have a question for you. Does it work? Who says it works? It never works. Never. Huh? No. So, and because now this guy is a serial criminal, huh? and this is why I put a star here, which would say that this is a macro. We will need that more often, right? Okay. We sit together, right, after the campaign, marketing campaign. Why did it not work? Right? And then there's his friend. He's a technician, and they're analyzing. And then the technician says, "I told you, there's still this bug in this product. These people don't like that flower pot heater because it still has this bug. Don't you think that this corner should be there and it should be blue instead of red? I told you from the beginning, and only that we cannot sell this thing, it only proves that I'm right and you're wrong." Okay. Put in the product 2.0. The grandma finally resolves the entire CPF, right? So there's enough money for the product 2.0. They do the marketing. And now is there success? Never happens, right? No. So let's use the macros here. I'm collapsing this because it's not the end. We're sitting together, very desperate, right? What do we do now? But then they found a rich uncle around the corner, and he loves the flower pot heater very much because he's very into flowers. So he comes in with an investment, $500,000, and he said, "I told you so many bugs in these products. We need a better product, and here it is, product 3.0. But we spent already 750,000 or a million. Marketing success? Yes, never happens. Product dies because now it's on. Now we are 2.5 years into the project, and $1 million burned, or so, sometimes 2, and everybody very sad. So that's how startups die. Now guess, what are the three main reasons if you go down, knowing all this? Or what did you, before you came here and I told you this sad story, what did you think? Why do startups die? Just three suggestions, good for me. And then I will tell you the truth. Speak up, young man.
They didn't start off with a real customer.
Okay.
And a real sense of a deep need that a customer doesn't.
So in short words, they didn't start up for the real customer. Good. Anyone else? Micha, say again. So it didn't check whether someone wants this product. Okay. Micha? Okay. Okay, whether it's necessary or not. Something else? I show you. I found this statistics which I like very much. They have looked into 1,000 startups. 36% of them, they're building something that nobody wants. Yeah. After I've shown you the bad example, it's very clear, right? Then, hiring poorly is 18%. Then, lack of focus, 13%. Then, fail to execute marketing and sales, 12%. Not having the right co-founders, 8%. Then, chasing investors and not customers, 6%. Not making sure that you have enough money, 3%. Then, I need to look closely, spending too much money, 2%. Failing to ask for help, 1%. And ignoring social media, also 1%. And now, that's a bit unspecific here. I bring some order into that for you, according to my, because there are there's one underlying basic problem. 50% of these failures, namely, they're building something nobody wants, fail to execute marketing and sales, and chasing investors and not customers, go back to the same reason. Namely, they never talk with the customer. They don't even look for customer. They don't think about customer, just what you have said. When there's a startup, they think investor. Where do I find somebody who gives me money so I can put my idea to practice? And when they get the money, and sometimes they get it, government subsidies and other, the first thing is, how do we pay our salary from that? And the first thought that comes to me as an investor, no, you don't pay your salary from my money. You invest it into something to produce fruits from it. Right? But that thinking is very seldom there. So it starts here from the next one. Fail to execute marketing and sales. I don't want to do marketing and sales. I have a nice product. I finish it. And once it's ready, people are convinced that it's good. And they will knock at my door and just grab it from me because it's such a good product. That's the thinking that I've seen it often. Not only 100 times, 500 times. And I never understand that. And the reason why they never understand, I also found out, is in their personality. And then building that something that nobody wants, I mean, is very clear. You build who needs a solar flower pot warmer in Singapore? Honestly, right? So these three together are the main reason, and they are responsible for 50% of the failures. 50%. So how can we improve this? In general, there's nothing against building flower pot warmers, right? But the problem is when people do this, they run this business and they run it as long as the capital is there. Once the capital is over, then there's a very steep fall. And the same principle also applies to businesses that are already there. Like I've seen a lot of food and beverage businesses in Singapore, a lot, because we did the ICV program for spring for a number of years, and I have helped dozens of food and beverage companies. And the reason why you're wondering why, I mean, the survival rate of F&B businesses in Singapore is about 6 months. So a new F&B opens, and 6 months later, you would see the same place empty, occupied by someone else. And the reason why this happens is the same why startups go bankrupt. So the general rule in order to avoid this is that you need to comply with only 5 points. Now, what are these 5 points? The first one is they never use the maximum available time for keeping the business open. Like for an F&B stall, this means 365 days per year. If this thing is allowed to be open, must be open. If a F&B looks at a new location and this can be opened only for, let's say, 5 days a week because it's in an industrial estate, I would say don't take this location because you run the danger that you go bankrupt because you don't comply with the rule number 1. If you are in a service business, then it's a bit more difficult because sometimes you need people to provide the services, like the gym here, right? You need people who do the training and then you cannot just come here. So still, if you don't maximize that, the danger is that this thing doesn't work. Sell more on the same day. It means for F&Bs, don't only provide 1 meal, don't provide 2 meals, you must provide 3 meals. And that's tough work. And most that go bankrupt, they don't have 3 meals. They have 2 meals or only 1 meal. Then the next thing, don't throw away your base material. For F&B business, the first that I do is I go and check the waste bin. If I find food, I said, wow, this outlet won't be open for a long time. The same applies if you have employees and you never watch what the employees produce. We as a law firm, for instance, we live from billing hours. Billing hour means that we clock hours that we can bill to the client. So if you have 15 employees and they have then per day 120 hours to clock and they clock only 12 hours, then there's a problem. Most law firms that I know don't even know how much time their people are clocking. Most startups that I know don't know how much the employees are clocking. They don't even have the concept of clocking time. Right? So and there's so much software out there that can help you, but they never do. And when I look back at the 100 bankrupt startups, they provided services. They had some sale, but still not enough. Why not enough? Because everybody was doing his own stuff or doing some new project, like not focused, right? So, and rule number 3. Then, number 4, know at the end of every day whether you made a profit or a loss. That's so far off. I tell you, 99% of the food and beverage outlets in Singapore don't know whether they made a loss or profit at the end of the day because they don't have the data. They would know it at the end of the month, maybe. At the end of the year, yes, but that's too late, 6 months, because they're bankrupt before that. If a new outlet opens with a software in place to tell you at the end of the day whether you made a profit or a loss, this thing will survive. Even the worst recession, whatever comes. They never do. Then this reinvest your profits into marketing. Oh, that's the worst. People never think about marketing. The F&Bs as well as the startups never think about marketing. And they never think about paying for marketing because marketing costs money. Sean, how much was the campaign for this event? Less than 100, but 100. Okay. By the way, did you all sign up properly? Did you all pay the $10? Who paid not? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this belongs to the therapeutic effect of this thing. Please take your $10 out and give it to Sean. Now. I tell you later why. There's a good reason for that. By the way, we have wait. Here you get your first marketing lesson. Your first, don't talk. You get your first marketing lesson if you didn't have one. These $10 come with 100% money back guarantee. No question asked. So the risk is fully on us. Okay? So if you think that at the end of the talk, you thought, these $10, no, don't, you get this back. That's one thing. When you do marketing, sell your service or your goods and put them out with a money back guarantee. My experience is it will never happen because people are usually happy with what we supply, right? But if you don't collect the money up front, later you have to run after it because people then forget the nice effect. So always collect before. This is marketing lesson number 2. Okay, so for new products, how can we improve that? I have a question. Who is here into development of new products? You too. Okay, so I show you what works. And if you do it that way, you qualify for an Enterprise Singapore grant. And Enterprise Singapore, if you do it that way, will fund your project with 70% of the total project cost. But you must change some things in your mindset and your way you think, you see that, so that you qualify for it. And if you don't understand, they would find out, and then you wouldn't get it. Because this is really something that hurts, especially technicians. So start with marketing at an early stage, right after conceiving the product idea and way before having a product. So if you wait, who said prototype? You said prototype. And then start the marketing. Wrong. Can tell you right away, wrong. If you start at the prototype stage, this is way, way too late. Market research is money wasted.
Hold on, actually, technically, he's using marketing for the definition of marketing. You're to some extent using marketing for the definition of sales. Sales, you can do after every product. Marketing is understanding what people want, what features to have, how to price it. You don't need all the physical.
Okay, this is so 2003, what you just told me. Today, very different, very different. Very different. I show you how. Okay, I like that. So the 2003, we all thought we must have some market research. Then we do our prototype, and then we do the marketing. Wrong, because the people who do the market research are never those who do the sales, right? So if you can grab those guys who had done the market research and put them into your sales team, that would be perfect, but the problem is they're long gone when that happens. So it never works. These market research the studies are always done by some interns, and then a senior guy, is he throwing up? Okay, so these are done by interns, and then some senior officer puts it together so it looks nice, and then they say, yes, this is what we see, that is what we see. What a nonsense. Whenever I see thick, and they pay tens of thousands of dollars for this nonsense. There's a way to do it better. So, the phase number 1 is the idea, right? Phase number 2, freedom to operate, and then IP. And immediately after that, you do a market validation. And if that does not work, then you stop. If it works, then you continue to the phase number 2. FTO means freedom to operate, IP, secure your own IP. And that's the difference is already in the idea stage. When you have the idea of your solar flower pot heater, generate something that you can use for sales. It could be a simulation, it could be a leaflet, it could be anything. But then, once this is done, you do your freedom to operate. What is the freedom to operate? Freedom to operate means, are you allowed to sell that product? Why may you not be allowed to sell a flower pot heater? There are many reasons. First, somebody might have a patent for that. Second reasons, there might be a flower pot heater act in Singapore. I don't know whether there is something like that, but there could be, right? And then you must register that thing with a certain authority, right? And then there are other requirements for all sorts of products, and that's all captured under FTO. And people never think about that. Huh? Then the next one would be market validation. Then take your leaflet or your simulation or whatever, it doesn't even exist, and try to find somebody who gives you a letter of intent written, one of your intended customers, right, must say, okay, I'm interested in this flower pot heater. I think is a great product. And if you only can demonstrate to me this in the real world, then I'm willing to purchase the first 10 prototypes for trying it out. So that's where the market starts. The marketing starts. So no longer market research, no longer surveys, no longer reports about expected success. No, take your simulation, make sure that you can talk about what your idea is, means IP, use NDAs and common sense where appropriate so that it doesn't get lost, and then go out and find people who are willing to issue a certificate that they are interested. And you would be surprised how difficult that is. When I send my startups out, they seldom come back with 3. Usually they get 2. Why only 2? Didn't you ask enough people? Yeah, I asked 200 people, but nobody wants to give me. Why not? Maybe my product is still a problem. They all complained because the simulation had this thingy. I never thought about that. And then we found out it's also not so easy because we need to register that. Did you know I invented a computer-controlled mosquito trap? And 4 years ago, this thing was so good, I punched a hole into the dengue map of Singapore. I lived in a landed property at the time, and I had 2 of the mosquito traps. It was so good that 100 meters down the road, there was a school and they had 300 dengue cases. And around, there were dengue cases and mosquitoes. Just our property was mosquito-free, and my neighbors' properties as well. But why is this trap not on the market? Because of the FTO. The NDA had NEA has a Vector Control Act in place, and you cannot possibly run my type of trap in Singapore. Despite being very safe, you need a special license. The special license put up the cost to $600 per trap per month. Nobody is willing to pay $600 per month in Singapore to not have dengue. So, I mean, it's much more expensive to have dengue, right? But to pay $600 per month for dengue prevention, nobody is willing to do. So that's the reason why there is no mosquito trap. We did other things in the same area, but this mosquito trap doesn't work. NEA also saw the figures, and they were not very, how to say, happy about that, because it clearly shows that we could do more. The problem is only, it must also be safe. And the true reason why my mosquito trap, it was also right to not allow my mosquito trap, is because if you run this thing and you cut the services off, the maintenance services, this thing may turn into a mosquito breeding spot. So instead of eradicating all the mosquitoes, suddenly you would have even more mosquitoes than before. And only if you put it into the hand of a responsible engineer, it would work. But if you give it Auntie around the corner and then she terminates her maintenance contract, and then suddenly she would have more mosquitoes than before. So ultimately it makes sense, but it took me some time to understand that. And the reason was because I did this thing. Okay, now functional model, same FTO and IP, market validation. So we have at least somebody who signs up for purchasing 3 products once they are ready in 1 year down the road. Also difficult to get. Because these people who put money on the table, they seem to have pain because they lose some money, and then they want value for it. And the value for it is they come with requirement lists what the product must be able to do. Right? So
the key to that, Martin, go back one slide, is the entrepreneur has to say, I will achieve A, B, and C with my product. It
correct.
has to meet that.
Yes.
And you need someone who says, well, if in fact you do what you say, then I'll buy.
Correct.
So that's the part.
Yes, with a 100% money back guarantee, of course. Of course, because you don't sell people things that don't work, right? Not in Germany, at least. Okay, next step, prototype step. Same as here, then success in this, 3 paid pre-sales obtained from serious targeted buyers. Another effect, you would be surprised when you want to sell a product, then the question is, to whom do I sell it? To the end user, to the customer, to the retailer, to the wholesaler, or do I give a license to the manufacturer, or do I become a supplier to somebody who manufactures? So you have the 5 steps, and then you would be surprised. You think you have a good product and the buyers are those, and then they would buy from you. I had a client who invented a charging cable, USB, a very smart charging cable for phones. No more fire hazard. And then he did a market evaluation on a trade fair in Hong Kong. And of course, the consumers, they were interested. And then he spent a lot of money in building it. And then he tried to sell it. But then he realized that he's not a retailer. Then he knocked at the doors of many wholesalers and manufacturers, but nobody wanted that product. So this product never made it to the market. Another apartment down the drain. Okay, so then we have a product, and here, success, 3 paid sales. And then from there, you need to grow. And that makes a successful startup. I've seen that working often. And sometimes you need to whack people into the right direction, and sometimes they never understand because but we come later to this other impact. That is how this strategy translates into a patenting strategy. It's quite sophisticated because a startup usually cannot afford 100 patents, but when you do this strategy, you would end up with at least 4 inventive features. That's my long year experience. So, and now how to give this startup a cheap patent application where the startup captures all the 4 features and without making them bankrupt by the IP. And IP is really expensive. So I usually try to tell people, don't file so much IP, it will kill you at one point in time. Yes? Wait. This one? Yes. Paid pre-sales. Paid. Money on the table. You want 5,000 charging cable? Give me $100,000.
Okay. And so that is still in the prototype phase, isn't it?
We only have a prototype and the promise to deliver a product.
In a situation where these sort of buyers try to influence the innovator into designing the product according to their vision.
Yeah.
Are there cases like that where if you have 3 different buyers, buyer A can say, okay, your prototype
Yes.
tends to do this, 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
I want 3 to be done differently.
Yes.
And then the another person says, okay, I want 3 to be done differently.
Yes.
Or I want 2 to be done differently.
Yeah.
So in that, are there scenarios like that? And in that
Yes, sure.
how does the innovator tackle these type of situations?
Yep.
Because
Yeah, but
all the 3 buyers are exactly
that's what happens in life, right?
Yeah.
So if you go all the way down and you do the product, then you would end up with so many segments of your customers, and they would have different needs. At the prototype stage, it's very cheap to react to that, and then you can decide, no, I don't want these customers, I want that. By not including that features, I don't have these customers. By including that, I have these, and he's willing to pay for that, but he is not. And then you can think, what is the value of the different customer segments? Without doing that experiment, you would never know that there are customer segments out there.
Let me pick up on an aspect of your question, which I thought was really important. So let's say we have these success, we have 3 pre-paid orders.
$100,000 in the bank account.
All right, but let's arbitrarily say that's whatever the dollar value is. But it's it's not enough money to keep your business running. And part of the crux of your question is, you've demonstrated I can get a paying customer.
Yes.
But I haven't said anything about where the money's coming from to keep this all going.
It's the $100,000 that you get here.
Well, it might or might not be. In other words, because what you price for a unit
may not be sufficient for
Yeah,
the running
right.
operational cost.
You're not asking them to invest in your whole business. You're just saying, for this thing, tell me you'll give me an order. You know?
That's the point where the entrepreneurial mindset comes in. And you cannot learn that. That's the where you bite the bullet. And if you don't have that, it doesn't work. We will talk about I mean, entrepreneurs have a special mindset. Yeah, they can bite bullets while others cannot. And if you have somebody who cannot bite bullets, he at that point in time he would have $100,000 and a promise to go, but he says, "Oh, I don't see a way to put this to practice." An entrepreneur would then ask for a loan, go to a bank, get the loan, because if you have $100,000 proved purchases, chances are good that there would be another 10 millions coming, right? So, but if you sit there like in German we say it's like a hair in front of a snake, huh? and you look at the snake, and the snake is you have 100,000 sales, but you need $500,000 to get this going, and then you need to make a decision, right? Do I stick my neck out? This boils down to personality. Where you have an employee who doesn't perform, but he has a disabled child and problems in the family. Would you sack him? Of course you sack him. Why not? If you suffer from cancer and you run this, and then would you press on, or would you take MC? Of course you press on. It goes down to that. Now, quick through. We have covered all this with a question and answer. Actually, I like the feedback that I got from you. So, 5 points that characterize a lasting business. Become a leader. Lasting business means you have taken the start, now you're flying. And now you want to grow. You want to grow from the million or the 100,000, 10 million, 100 million. First, become a leader. Learn how to know yourself and your employees. Hire quick and get rid of the wrong employees quick. That is all about personality. The best guy in this room to tell is Tech Bang here. He runs a training company that is into that. Next one, change your mindset. Work on the business and not in the business. Most owners that I know, they are like they are like their best own employee. So, and if you do that for a very long time, you will not have a good company. You cannot grow because you're always the bottleneck. So you must step out, put on the head of the entrepreneur, and now instead of designing a product, you design a big machine that makes these products. And the big machine is your company. And that change in the mindset is that people never get. Next one. Create your business to be based on responsibilities and not based on personalities. Also, very often businesses are kingdoms. Like there's a king, then in the morning we stand together, then we get a list of problems, and then the king says, you solve this problem, you solve this problem, you solve this one, thereby making himself to the bottleneck again. Second, if someone of those people goes away, dies, whatever, it leaves a gap and nobody knows what this guy was doing, because over the long run, the same guy is always doing the same thing. But there's no responsibility for something. There's this personality who does or does not take care. Next one, automate and make yourself independent from suppliers. Example, I'm getting rid of in our small firm, I'm getting rid of all our hardware servers. the data servers. No more servers, all in the cloud. There's a data center, they take care of everything. It's a bit more expensive, but I don't have this arrogant IT guys around who never reply when I have a need. Then get help from experts. It should be clear, right? But again, this would cost money. And by forking out the $10, you have already paid your first expert today. And people, very often, when they say, you need to invest this or that money, the cost and this cost. If you remember back to the big cake, what was the reason? They spent too much money. But how many percent of the startups went bankrupt because they spent too much money? 1%, 1 in 100. So the spending the money is never the problem. The problem is getting the money in. And people who have this mindset, who cannot just give away the money, they will get nowhere with their company. Landing phase. Start with the end in mind. If you don't start with the end in mind when you set up a business, also you will go nowhere. So the first piece of your mindset is die with your boots on. In my case, I can tell you already, I work until 80. That's also why I do this training here. It's an investment into my health. And yeah, my dentist sits here. So I'm also investing into my teeth, because without teeth you don't get old. Huh? So, say again? Yeah. But my first milestone would be 80. So, and then half day. Yeah, and after, I know a doctor, she worked until 103, and then she retired, and then she lived until 113. Is one of my examples. Actually, I'm collecting life stories of people who die in their boots. One is Lee Kuan Yew. This guy, I admire him a lot. Pity that I never met him. Then Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, he was sick of cancer. He worked almost until last week. Also, and also this lady here. And I can guarantee she would die with her boots on. This is the Queen, Queen Elizabeth. A very cool woman. Okay, and leave a legacy. From you, I heard once, we need to die, and the last check must bounce. It sounds good, but it's wrong. You should leave a legacy for the people. And when you have these two things in mind, die with your boots on and leave a legacy, then your company will be more successful. Okay, well, we got 10 minutes only. Regular problems of failing businesses is, the boss is a technician who flees from his manager. I see that often. People who work in industry and they're unhappy because of the environment and the KPIs they have to meet and the time and the leave and blah, 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 blah. And then now I become free. Ultimately, I take my lathe and I make myself independent. I set up a drilling company and I do my things alone. These guys are doomed. As I've seen that often. Then a price buyer. Now you come your $10 into play. People who spend hours on the internet looking for the cheapest flight to somewhere. They're price buyers. These people go nowhere because when they try to sell their products, they always think that their product is too expensive. And they never can ask the right price, and they never will have a margin. They would never have leeway to make business decisions because they always work on a very thin margin because they always think I'm too expensive. And the first thing to find out is try to make them pay for something. And
But the implication on that is you have to have something that people will spend the extra amount on. If you're literally drilling the hole, you have the example of the driller, it's hard to have leverage to say, no, this is $100, it's not $1. You got to come up with ideas that move people. And
you would be surprised how many successful companies started from lathe operators. Yeah, and they have something. They deliver in time, for instance. They're punctual. How many were late today? Very bad. Regular problem-failing business, people with a very high degree of empathy. Very difficult life. Very difficult life. Can work, but I can tell you they would never can never have a happy life as a employee, as an entrepreneur. A very low or a very high IQ guy. Very low is clear, right? There are some people that are so stupid they don't even realize that they're stupid. But the same applies also at the other end of the bell curve, the other tail. There are people that are so smart, they don't realize that not everybody in their environment is not so smart as they are. And constantly, they overestimate their capabilities. And that leads the whole company into the wrong direction. I've seen them, some of them. I find them very interesting, actually. Then, someone who cannot be punctual. Yes. I have no idea. But it has definitely not to do with entrepreneurship. Yeah. Okay. How to become a successful? This is my last slide. Okay. I will tell you on my example how I did it, and if someone of you wants, Sean, for instance, you can also contribute to that. So my first rule. What what is brain helps, money helps, knowing the right people helps. But if you don't have an entrepreneurial mindset, everything else gets sidetracked. So brain, money, knowing people is important. But if you are not an entrepreneur inside you, then setting up your own company will not add joy to your life. And that's the ultimate goal, right? We must find fulfillment. If we don't find fulfillment in our job, then we must find fulfillment somewhere else. But if our job is our company, then not having fulfillment in your company is a very bad thing to start with. And I tell people, there's no wrong personality, right? There are people who have an entrepreneurial personality, others have not. It does not mean that these guys are bad or have a bad wrong. God made us as we are, put us here, and is now on us to find the right place. And if you recognize already that this is not the right place for you, you shouldn't go there. You should try to go somewhere else where you like it. And there are other ways to do it. You can have a day job which pays your calling and your passion in the 4 hours that you have after work. And then this is the way to a joyful life. You find such people in the local grassroots leader organizations, for instance, right? This is one example. So, how do we start? Here's your strategy. First, assess your skills and entrepreneurial strengths. In my case, I was sitting in this car with the rain on the rooftop when age 25 in front of our university, no job. I was really desperate, 400 job application, nobody replied even, right? For a period of 2 months. And I thought, what do I do next? And I was reading this little book about patents, and I have a lot of inventions. And then I decided, hey, the fastest way to become self-employed is I enroll myself into law school, become a patent attorney, and then I open my own office, and I will always make a living from that. So this is what I did. And entrepreneurial strengths, I had businesses way back. I had always some business. I only worked as an employee for 2 years in my life. And then I was a government official for 1 year, which led to a depression, so I left that. And I was a German soldier for 2 years. So that's my employed environment. But the rest, I was always self-employed. And I prefer to earn money as a freelancer over being employed for somebody. So I solve problems, but I don't fulfill responsibilities. Next one. Select a goal for which you have a competitive advantage. Okay, in my case, patent attorney, if you're an inventor and an engineer, that's really something you can go. Next one. Count the cost of achieving preeminence in this field. Preeminence, that's something, right? I didn't think so much about that when I started out at that, but I knew that when I was in law school, that I was much smarter than most of the others there. So it was easy for me to find out that this could go somewhere. And when I look back now, 26 years later, in Singapore, I've changed the law 3 times. I was at all possible courts in Germany, also in Singapore. I even had a case at the constitutional courts. You find my articles all over the internet. I believe the first 3 pages of Google belong to me if you Google for my name. So I believe for a patent attorney, which is a very niche thingy, I believe I have achieved that. Yeah, I have 110,000 followers on LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever. So practically everybody in this area knows me. Then begin to specialize. Yes, I did so. Patent attorney is quite niche. Find an expert who will teach you based on your initial performance. I found somebody, a mentor, who took me up for 2 years, and then he showed me everything in his business. This was in the north of Germany, so I would never become a threat to his business because I was from the south. But he was always hoping that I stay there, and then never did so. Then select a group whom you will serve with this output. I had a few groups, like the MNCs, of course, then startups, then I have SMEs. So these are 3, and then we have foreign associates. Then the next one, select a different group whose assessment of your output will be crucial for success in the field. So that was difficult because then I started giving lectures at university. Today I'm I would say, supply teacher. I always call myself supply teacher at the Technical University of Munich in Singapore. It's called to be a Ivy League university in Germany. It's the best technical university. And I'm teaching IP there, and I do all this, and then I'm writing articles in newspapers and so on. So this was my group that endorses me and that gives my clients a good feeling when they hire me, so that they know I'm not talking nonsense, even if we do creative things. And then the last one is get the trust of the group you wish to serve by way of your preliminary low-level service. And that's it, what I do with my webpage. You can download lots of knowledge for free about IP and how to use it. And so, yeah. And now the most crucial one, the far most important, show up on time every time. No one else will do this unless he is trying to pick up your targeted group for his course. Then outlast him. And when I say I want to work until 80, this is part of the outlast him. Yeah. So check out my webpage, iplawyertools.com. Subscription, all course fees come with a 1 month, 100% no question asked money back guarantee. Yeah. So that's where you find more. This is not my firm's webpage, it's my personal one. Right, so we have 57 minutes of 60 minutes used. Now you have 3 minutes for your questions. This German timing.
One of your core points seems to be, rather than elaborate marketing plans, very early, get a flesh and blood, identified, real customer.
Yes.
Who's interested, and then we'll go through progressive stages of commitment.
Correct.
And what you're saying is a small sample of a real customer who will make a real commitment.
Yes.
Is more important than a sheet of paper that has elaborate plans with no real anything.
Correct.
And that seems to me to be the heart of it.
Yes.
It's quite an unusual way of thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
I told you it will hurt, right?
Yes, because most marketing school will say that you do some focus group, some market research, and then you get a 50 pages out of.
Because none of those people need to make the commitment. You're doing the empirical test of would you pay?
Put money on the table, then we talk.
So what happened to those guys? You said there are some entrepreneurs who come back with 2. They say they can't get 3. So what did you advise them?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
2 is better than 3, right?
Or better than 1, right?
Better than 1, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, but even 1 would be something, because if he asks 200 people, gets only 1 reply, then there's a reason. And then these guys go back, what is the reason? Why does of the 200 only 1 give me? And it costs nothing, a letter of intent, right? And there must be a reason. And then they go back and then they think, what is my problem? Did I ask the wrong people? Is my product wrong? What is, and input, the FTO, they ask him, do you have the registration for this and that? And I, what? I said, don't you know? You need a registration for this. Why would you need a registration? Don't you know that law? Everybody has that registration. And I see the problem. And then they go back, oh, I never thought about that problem. So, and then maybe I rethink my whole. And I did this with my mosquito trap, right? My neighbor is a lawyer and his wife is also a lawyer. And then I tried to sell them my mosquito trap because it was there, right? And then I was so happy. And then they said, no, we don't want to buy. Why not? Ah, it's too dangerous, with mosquito in Singapore. Do you have a waiver? Do you have a letter from NEA? And I said, what? I said, yeah, NEA. The uncles that go around and check the flower pots for the larvae. I said, yeah, but that's a trap. Yeah, but it has larvae, right? Yeah, yes, it has larvae. Very small ones until they get killed, but it's larvae. Right? And then I called NEA, and then say, yeah. Don't you know the Vector Control Act? I said, no. I said, look up in the internet. Then I looked up. Oh shit! So if you set up a company that produces these traps, right, then the director would be liable for those traps working. And I only found out by doing my first sale. Which was lethal ultimately. But I learned a lot. I have a few other inventions. Some of my inventions made it to a product. And intuitively, back in 1997, I did it this way, and it worked. So I have a kitchen scale that that sells. Yeah, is a real product.
One of the sort of intricate, tricky things about what you're saying is, in the early stage, a small sample of a real commitment is better than sort of a planning hypothetical. But then how do you know you can scale? How do you start early with that very small sample of a real commitment, but then position for scalability? Because that's the other end of the spectrum.
But then it all boils down. You need to meet the right people. It means once you go around and you ring the bell, you would meet, you can be a supplier to a manufacturer. You can be a licensor to a manufacturer. You can be a seller to a wholesaler. You can be a seller to a retailer. You can be a seller to the end consumer. And by finding out where your position is, you would also find out how easy it is to scale. You would meet people who are looking for a product like yours. And then you have the choice, can sell the whole idea. But if you don't go out, then you would never have that option. Well, go ahead, ask.
A bit of a different question. At one point, like in today's technical world, a lot of things are happening. People innovate, their product runs, and then MNC buys that innovation or that patent. So how does that innovator decide, okay, I want to sell my patent for how many ever million or $1 billion to a bigger company? How do you value that patent which you have got in your name when you're selling it to somebody else?
That is the same strategy. Once you have sales in place, even minimal sales, then you can immediately say, what would be the market? And then you can easily project what would be the profit from that. And then you have this projection, and then you talk with the guys from the MNCs and show them your figures, and then they would tell you where they see a value or not.
The premise of what you just said, I know research institutes, the universities, a lot of them patent before they have a committed paying customer. Right? So your thing is you have to have those early sales.
Yeah, I would not give them money for patenting without having a customer.
Well, even that's a fairly profound and strong statement, right? Because a lot of people do patenting before having a customer.
Yeah, I mean, and not to forget, this is taxpayers' money, right? I mean, why would we let them do that? And very seldom, this turns into something valuable. And if you, I thought about that. In Germany, there's the Fraunhofer Institute, which is similar to A-Star in Singapore. We have worked for them. Fraunhofer got a lot of revenue because they were involved in the MP3 development. MP3 standard is this music file standard, right? The compressed music. But this was for a very long time the only revenue from outside. There's highly subsidized. So, I mean, I'm not in charge of any of those institutes, and I don't think that we work for them. We work for one university in Germany, but yeah. But if I would have been in charge of academic research and IP, I would do it very differently, as what I see, from what I see. Because if you never plan to make revenue from your invention, then it's just as good as not inventing it. Very pragmatic approach, by the way. Okay, so now anything else? We got 10 minutes over time. The plan is that after that we go over, not far from here, there's a restaurant. They have smoked meat, this American or Australian? American, very good house beer, and I'm hungry, and so I would suggest that we go over there and finish the evening there. Thank you very much. Thanks.